Today, I'm going to tell you my story. I'm going to share with you the things that I learned from my own school years growing up in grade school. Um, I can't really speak for myself right now, but when I was young, I was pretty bright. I recall how, at a very young age, I learned how to read the word stop all on my own. After all, it was at the end of every street in my neighborhood. I was very pleased with myself for knowing such a big word. Of course, I never got credit for teaching myself to read anything. It was just pure serendipity. It wasn't even on a test. The only reward I got or needed at the time was the excitement of learning something new. Once I was in school, I had to wade through all the three-letter words before I got to read the word stop in class. In school, I was always placed in the advanced reading group. But third grade was a pivotal year for me. I had a wonderful teacher that allowed me to read ahead. She let me burn through as many books as I liked. Of course, these were not novels or picture books or nonfiction books, but they were reading textbooks. You may remember them from school yourself. They're the ones that there's poems, short stories, excerpts from longer works, and they're all placed all in one book. I remember one book in particular. It was called Serendipity. Serendipity was a new word for me at the time in third grade, but I learned the meaning of the word and I have not forgotten it since. Ironically, I learned the word in a system that does not recognize or appreciate serendipitous learning. I have to say, though, that I wasn't a shining student in all the academic areas. Remember the time tests we used to have to take in third grade? Well, I mean, I do. I was really bad with them. It was hard on me when I realized that I was one of the slow kids in class when it came time for taking the times test in the higher numbers. It was hard for me. As a matter of fact, I actually never really learned all my times tables that year or the next. It was really over 20 years before I actually finally got the 1 through 10 times tables down cold. Lacking memorization, of course, math homework took longer for me, and I had a higher error rate. At any rate, though, my third grade teacher felt that I would be a good candidate for the gifted and talented program. She had me tested, and I was in. So fourth grade in the gifted program was a highlight of my elementary years. My teacher, Mrs. Hochter, was wonderful. She was kind, creative, and fun. We did so many great things in class. I remember we studied Greece. I played the role of Antigone in our class play. I fell in love with Greece. I decided that someday I have to visit the Parthenon. I haven't done it yet. In the same class, we had an international day, and that's when I tried sushi for my first time. I did a presentation for the class for which I brought in my entire family, all 6 of us, to help with the presentation. My father even brought his vibraharp. It's this huge musical instrument that he played for the class. I also love that I learned how to read music in Mrs. Hochter's class. She taught us all how to play the recorder. I had so many great, dynamic, and fun learning experiences that year. It was so memorable. Probably the most profound learning experience I had from that teacher, though, was reading time. And I don't mean we opened our reading textbooks and read to the teacher. Instead, we sat quietly while the teacher read chapter books to us. This was everyone's favorite part of the day. We listened to many books. I remember she read to us A Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, Roald Dahl, his book, James and the Giant Peach, and so many more books, all in that year. We had a great time listening to her read to us. As a matter of fact, it gained for me a love of reading myself, because following that school year, for the first time in my life, I started reading chapter books all on my own, and I loved it. That summer, after my fourth grade, I reread each of the books Mrs. Hochter read to us, including the entire Chronicles of Narnia series. It was the start of my love affair with books. But here comes a sad part of the story. The love affair did not last very long. In 5th grade, I was still in the gifted program, but my new teacher was not so creative or resourceful. She did allow each of us to learn at our own pace, which was nice, but she was not very supportive if you fell behind. You might recall that 5th grade is the year that you learn long division. So in that advanced class, I felt like I was the only one who didn't understand it. I really struggled with it, and I asked the teacher for help, but she helped in the only way that she knew how. She was impatient, and she yelled at me right in front of the class, and I cried. I couldn't, the yelling didn't help at all, and I was completely embarrassed. I just wanted to crawl into a hole. So following this incident, I begged my mom to put me back into the regular program because I figured I'm not really that smart. So my loving mother accommodated, and I was back to the regular class. The great thing was I was put into a 5th, 6th combination class with a wonderful teacher. I was Katrina in our class play of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We had class parties and games that involved the whole class. It was a really nice way to finish out the year in a positive way. Now, the incident I am about to relate to you probably happened in the 6th grade. I'm not positive. Anyway, back in the late 70s, our school had a reading lab. It was a classroom set aside for a reading program. This room had several stations set up with machines that supposedly would exercise and test different reading levels. For example, I recall a machine that would flash a word on the screen and then we would write it down. The thing we liked best about the reading lab is that you could acquire points based on how well you do in the reading lab. If you got enough points, you could win a marathon bar. It was like the longest chocolate bar I'd ever seen. And I was a good reader, so I was gaining points in my usual head of the class way. But then there was this one machine that gave me trouble. The machine would show me a line of text across the screen at the same time. I would read a short story that was given to me line by line, and then I would take a short comprehension quiz. The tricky part is that the rate that the words appeared on the screen could be changed depending on the reader's needs. Not knowing how fast anyone would read, they probably started this all out at the same speed. I was really disappointed to find out when to realize I didn't actually do very well on the comprehension quiz. Assuming that the words were going too fast for me, the teacher slowed it down and I tested worse. So they slowed it down even more and I tested even worse. I recall this event so clearly. It was like my dream of the chocolate bar just falling apart in front of my face. But what's worse is I was labeled. All of a sudden, I was led to believe that I was a slow reader. And I believed it and I acted accordingly. I actually stopped reading. I never read a single novel again until I was an adult. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about high school, right? You're supposed to read books in high school. Well, I wasn't in the advanced classes anymore. I had one time when I was required to read a book and do a book report on it. Fortunately, Little Women was on the list, and I just happened to be in that play in high school at the time. And so I actually did the report without ever reading the book. So as an adult and looking back on the reading lab incident, I realize now that what the real problem was many years ago. The problem was a machine was going too slow the whole time. It was too hard for me to focus and my mind wandered. I couldn't concentrate and I failed. I thought I was too slow, but in reality, the machine was too slow. After this, I wasn't in any advanced groups anymore. It really wasn't too bad, but I did feel insulted when I was placed in a reading class in junior high. The advanced kids didn't have to take reading at that age. Nevertheless, I sat respectfully as a reading teacher passed out the textbooks that we were going to be using in class. Imagine my shock and hurt when I recognized the book. Serendipity, the exact book I read as an advanced third grader. Reflecting back on my school years now, I imagine how things could have been different. In an ideal situation, there would have been far fewer students in my classes. Teachers would have had the time, ability, and interest to recognize when something goes wrong. They could appreciate that I was not only a gifted reader, but that I was also a great little actress. I would have spent a lot more time reading and performing. They would have known that math was not my strong suit, and they would have been okay with that. How would my life be different today if I had got the care and support in school that I really needed? Of course, we'll never know, right? But life is all about learning. I can learn from those experiences. Today, I run an education program, and my own school years have a strong influence on the way I run that program. I can take and expand on the things that were good, and I can try to avoid making the mistakes that happened to me. The program that I run today is a lot like the schooling I got from my fourth grade teacher. We use themes, we integrate many types of intelligences, and we have small student to teacher ratios. Our teachers know their students and their needs. I also like to help families homeschool their kids. There's nothing that can compare to the powerful one-on-one learning that homeschooling affords, or the love and concern that parents have. A teacher in a crowded classroom, regardless of how many degrees she has, can never do for your child the things that you can do for her. Your child will not fall through the cracks like I did. Rather, you have the opportunity to give your children the exact type of learning they need. The standardized system by design provides a common education for your kids. And it will never be good enough. It will never be exactly what your child needs. Your child is an individual with wants, talents, and needs that are unique to him. Now I'm taking my 30 years in homeschooling and my 15 years in running a learning program to the rest of the world. I'm in the process of making Celebration Education's fun lesson plans and system available to learning groups anywhere. So if you feel like you need something new for your kids, know that you have options. We're putting together a plan where families can be up and running with fun, meaningful, individualized, and powerful learning in just 2 weeks' time, from the time you leave school to the time you start with friends in your home. Now, to find out how you can participate, go to learningoutsidethebox.com, and I look forward to seeing you there. Bye.